Welcome, guys. It's Andy here from D6 Evolution, along with Lewis.
Hi there.
Hey, buddy. So, guys, chapter approved.
Oh yeah, that's what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Literally waiting for weeks just to see any kind of release, but we've got a few leaks now,
Yeah.
and everything I could have hoped for anyway. It's been really good.
So, just to clarify, guys, this is being filmed a few days before it's released, and it's really about our reactions to some of the things we've seen, and particularly some of the missions we've seen.
Yep.
And Lewis really wanted to do this video because it's all about how you approach, each chapter approved, isn't it?
Yeah. To be honest, like we're doing in the middle of our How to Be a Better 40K series at the moment, and I think the approach to this book could just slide right into that series. To be honest, because it's all part of the list building, pre-planning, all the stuff that we're going to go through. Isn't the actual playing the game? It's all the stuff you do before you even arrive at the event. And when a new book like this drops, how you approach it is really important. So yeah, it's exciting to talk about.
Good. So, I mean, I guess how I approach it was completely different to how you approach it, and he's just going to tell me I'm wrong.
Well, we have our own ways.
So, if you want to be a bad 40k player or a bad list builder, you basically just try and figure out if your list still works, which is what I did. First thing I was like, right, I'm a Custodes, they haven't been broken, fantastic.
You picked up your old list and you went, how much is it cheaper by? Oh, it's like 300 points or 200 points. Oh, I can get another unit of this in it.
It's 0
which
points cheaper.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same. Yeah, it's Jetpacks, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, my approach was completely different. I looked at it and went, okay, what's cheaper? Why is it cheaper? Like, what was stuff that I considered before that I didn't take because I was too expensive? And I just tore my lists up and I just started again. I kept the same kind of principles, the same ideas about what I wanted to do, but I just started looking at all of the units that I hadn't even considered before.
Yeah, absolutely, back to basic. And guys, that's what you really should be doing. I'm just a bad list writer.
So for me, I mean, like I'm a Chaos player, as you know. I was looking at the CSM side of things. I was like, okay, Havocs are like 5 autocannon Havocs is like 100 points now. I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like 3 of those is your heavy support of a brigade. Forge Fiends, Mauler Fiends, like Raptors, Warp Talons. Warp Talons got the Demons keyword. They've come down in points. All of a sudden, I'm pulling up my Demons Codex again. I'm saying there were some combos I had in mind, like okay, they can advance in charge if they're Slaanesh, or the Crimson Crown can let them hit again. They're rerolling all wounds. Like there's loads of little things that I'd thought about, but I've just put them to the side because they're too expensive, and now I'm just bringing them all to the fore again. So
because inherently there's some quite good units, but they're just overcosted, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They're just things that you went, well, there's a better option out there. Why would I take X when I could take Y, and Y is better? And I've forgotten all about X. But now I'm like, well, I looked at X in the first instance because it was really good. I just thought Y was better. But now is it cheaper? Is it better now? And I'm starting to look at those again. An argument for me, I'm looking at some sort of shooty element of my World Eaters Brigade, and I've moved on to Decimators because I thought they were better. But now I'm like, well, maybe Forge Fiends could work, which I would never have even thought. I forgot about Forge Fiends. And then I was looking at the Forge Fiend going, oh, the BS4, no, maybe it doesn't work. I was kind of forgetting about it. And I went, I haven't even thought about the Defiler. And the Defiler's so much cheaper now as well. So all of a sudden, like, completely forgot about these data slates. And now I'm looking at them in my list. So really very happy.
I just love how excited you are about it.
Defiler's demons. It could be World Eaters. It could reroll hits from Khan. There's so much stuff out there. Crimson Crown works on the shooting attacks of the demon engines. Like all of a sudden, like stuff I just completely forgot about.
Okay, so Lewis, if we can calm down for a little moment, okay, buddy. So how do you approach this? Do you write the points out, or what do you do to try and identify the better units?
I found there's obviously loads of leaks online, and I found like some spreadsheets online where people had just gone through and done all the points costs. You could do it yourself, but someone had already done it, might as well follow it. And I just looked at all the major drops, especially if there's some out there who've got like percentage drops on it. So I'm like, okay, that's gone down 40%. Let's have a look at that unit. What's the combos? What's the things I could do with that unit? As if I just opened up a new codex and this is the first time I was seeing it. And I thought maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, and just kind of park it in the memory bank and then look at the next unit. And just trying to judge if there are some value and stuff in some of these drops, or whether they're all still garbage units because they're data slates.
So you mentioned points, and you shouldn't really look at points as an absolute number, should you?
No, absolutely not. You've got to consider. Well, you've got to consider the points cost relative to the unit. And some of these drops are huge drops, even though they're only like a point drop. So like the Cultist one that everyone's been talking about, 4 points to 5 points is on a unit of 40 cultists, that's a 40 point increase, That, all of a sudden that unit is maybe not worth considering anymore.
But like on a, isn't it? just
Yeah, exactly. But on like a plasma gun, I think the drop is like 3 points. Oh, that's really exciting. And proportionally, it's quite high. But what, you're going to take two plasma guns in a squad, or maybe three? It's a 6, maybe 9 point swing. It's not as big a change. So it's trying to realize the actual like net effect of that change, not just the individual points reduction. So
yeah, absolutely. So guys, what we're going to do in this this video really is we're going to go over quickly what we think are some of the bigger winners, and unfortunately what some of the losers. Chaos. And
no way.
and then really we're going to get to the crux of it, which is the missions. And guys, this is where the change is going to happen, because if you're over in the UK scene, you play Eternal War, you play Maelstrom, you usually play them together. Actually, you don't do ITC missions. So we're going to be playing these missions in a competitive environment, and these are the game changers here, guys, and these are game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with the missions. We can come back to some of the more units.
You just waited for me to say that and just completely
I know. We'll switch the order, but
okay.
I think it's important to start with the missions, because then they're going to determine what you're going to play. Yeah. So all the missions haven't been properly revealed to us. We've seen a few leaks here and there, so we don't know the full details of it. But what's the main change that we've noticed in the missions so far?
So for me, now going second is not just a viable option, it may be the better option.
Absolutely. I was advocating that right at the beginning of 8th edition. I think the influx of alpha strike lists and stuff kind of changed that mentality. Yeah. But I remember I went to Warhammer World for one of their heats. I think it was the first heat or whatever they did for the grand tournament last year. And it was only Eternal War. And I deliberately chose to go second every game, because whoever holds that point at the end of the game is going to win. I was struggling with some of the competitive lists that are just going to blow off the table. I still did okay. But like now you've got prepared positions, which allows you to support it, and you've got the change of deployment, which is the big thing in these new missions. So what's the change of deployment, Andy?
So there's quite a few different changes to deployment, actually. So now that essentially what happens at the start of the game is you roll to see who chooses sides. Okay, and if you win that roll off, you choose your side, which is fantastic. Now the other person then deploys first. So, and then you get to, as the person who's going to be going second, get to then counter deploy completely. So that is absolutely huge, because you know exactly where the person who's going first is going, and then you completely counter deploy for it.
Yeah, so this is basically what it was like in 7th edition. You deploy your entire army, and then your opponent deploys their entire army.
So whoever deploys first goes first. Or well, actually they decide whether you go first or second.
I'm a big fan of that, because oftentimes you haven't got a lot of time in between tournament rounds. So the fact that you can walk up to a table, they win the world off, whatever, decide they're going to deploy first, and you can go to the toilet, get a tea, coffee, come back for 20 minutes, and they finish deploying their army, and then you can do yours. So it gives you a little bit more of a break. I kind of like it.
And don't get me wrong, there'll probably still be some of the missions where you do the old way, because it's not just going to be chapter approved missions. They're going to still use the rulebook missions and last year's chapter approved. But
yeah, well, just to make a point on that, I think that's really key for us, sort of how to be put at 40k, is that you've got to now be prepared to be playing Eternal War missions in the new book and Eternal War missions from the old book, where the deployment is going to be different. So you write entire one-dimensional list that's all about going first, and then you're playing lists where actually going second is beneficial. So you've really got to look at the tournament packs before you turn up and decide whether, if it's all just new chapter approved, maybe you write a list specifically for that, but that list probably wouldn't be as good in old chapter approved missions. So you need to know what you're playing in preparation for it.
Okay. Do you know my best change of it, though?
Yeah.
And that is seizing the initiative means something again.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
It is so dumb.
I know, it was just another roll, wasn't it?
It was just like, I go first. Right. Now you go first, because I rolled it.
Yeah. I know. Well, the other thing about it is that, and this is what I'm so excited about in the new version, like you are, is that back in 7th edition, you deploy your army, and you always have a choice. Do I deploy super aggressive, even though I'm supposed to be going first? Do I deploy super aggressive, and the off chance they don't roll that 6, or do I still deploy somewhat tentatively? Because if I deploy super aggressive and they roll a 6 and go first, I'm screwed. I've got nothing in cover. I haven't blocked up line of sight or anything like that. So it really makes a meaningful choice.
Sorry to cut across you, but you still get to use that strat when you go first. When you go second. even.
Yeah, you do, but like where you position stuff, like do you want to be right on the line so you're in range of rapid fire, like those sort of things that, if they've got 24-inch weapons, or say they've got 36-inch weapons, right? You might decide that you might place your unit just a little bit outside 36-inch range so that if they go first, they have to move to get into range for you. Or do you decide I'm just going to be right on the line and I'm just going to go first and I'm just going to run at their face? And it's really meaningful. It's a really hard decision to make often, especially when we're playing like close combat orientated armies. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of it. It's much more tactical level to the game.
But also, if your opponent just castles off and plays way too defensively for their deployment, just give them first turn.
Yeah, and then
you decide after they've deployed.
Absolutely,
so it's absolutely massive.
Yeah. So you play an army, you make it out like you want to go first. They obviously just deploy as they would want to, knowing they're going to go second. And they go, no, you go first. And they go, oh shit, my first turn is like it's useless.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not in range of anything. I can't shoot anything. I've got to move out of position. I really have basically a null first turn. Yeah. So you've got to be remembered that they can do that to you as well. So don't just be thinking one dimensionally. Yeah. Think, well, what happens if they seize? What happens if they choose to go second? I've always got to be playing tentatively. But it's a player choice rather than just it's the rules. They go first, you go second.
I think those redeploy stratagems are going to be really key now. Like the Custodies have 1, the Eldar have like 7.
Well, they were key before. Now they're even more key. I'm going to absolutely agree with that.
But you can totally switch it up. Like if you steal the initiative, you switch it up. So suddenly you, like with my Custodians, I'll round my jet bites to the front of the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to catch your opponent off guard because he may not have that. He may have deployed way too aggressively.
Yep, absolutely. No, I mean the when you deploy your entire army, kind of blind. Obviously, you deploy first. You're always going to be playing kind of carefully. You're going to be right. I have some stuff in the middle, some stuff on the sides, kind of balanced because you don't know where the opponent's going to go. Yeah. As we've got at the moment, they put a unit, you put a unit, and you're always sort of counter deploying against each other. It's a completely different set of stratagems and ideas and mentality about the game when you're just going to deploy everything blind, knowing that they're going to counter deploy you. So the tactics involved in that, when you've got redeploy stratagems and stuff, it's going to bring another level to the game that I used to really love in 7th. The idea about that. And I'm glad to see it's coming back in, but I'm also glad that it's not the main thing. It's half of their missions are going to be like this, and the other half will be how they were before. So
yeah, I mean, I do kind of like that whole I go, you go thing for deployment. It was fun until you just rocked up to the table and like, mate, I've put 7 things in reserve, just deploy your army.
Yeah. No, I actually, I think overall, I think the you go, I go deployment is better. But what I love is the fact that you have both. And I really want tournaments to be saying we're going to play half the old missions, half the new missions. So you don't build a list around one idea. You're going to be playing such a breadth of a game, and it's going to mean people don't get into those much more sort of scissor paper rock lists because they have to have a balance. They have to have a bit of flexibility because of the missions.
So guys, if you're going second, you've chose the side.
Mm-hmm.
You have counter deployed your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the cover strat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, guys, none of this is dependent on the amount of drops either, deciding on who goes first or second.
Yep.
It's purely based upon that roll up. So there's no manipulating it at the moment.
Yeah.
And there'll be some fucking stupid formation which will be like +7 to the roll or something.
They will. I'm sure they'll get
roll
back to
a D12 instead of a D6 for your first turn.
Yeah. Well,
that'll be Inari's new thing. Just roll D12s for everything.
Well, the other thing you've got to remember as well is that the objectives and the missions are different as well. And I'm not going to go through all of that. We may well do that in a different video. Right. But some of the missions they score the objectives at the end of the battle round, not at the end of the turn.
About to mention that.
Exactly.
Huge.
So you really almost definitely want to go second, because then you have an opportunity to move on those objectives. Not just like it used to be with Return to War, where it was at the end of the game, but these are the end of every single battle round. So the fact that you get second gives you the choice to do it. And I think, to be honest, if some of the tournaments play a lot of those style missions, then you building your list to go second almost invariably like that is just the way to win them objectives.
That is huge because, guys, at the moment we play progressive missions with the older chapter approved things like the one, what's it called, the one where you burn objectives and
Scorched Earth.
I think that one. Yeah. So that is you score every one of your turns, but it's not to do with the battle round; it's to do with your turn. So with the battle round, it is massive because if you're going first, your opponent just shoots you back off all the objectives, and you don't score any points. And
you set up your move. You go, I'm going to go on this unit. I'm going to go on this objective with this unit, and then your opponent goes, right. That means I've got to get that objective back from that unit. Whereas at the moment, it's just you move on to it, and you'll clear it and move on to your turn. You get the score. I mean, we've kind of got that in the Maelstrom with the stuff that is like hold it for 2 turns. It's kind of the same kind of idea, and everyone who's played that knows it's actually quite tricky to know that you can hold it for 2 turns. So it's a very similar idea, and I'm a big fan of it.
I think that is massive because a lot of the times, particularly at the moment, I just tow in with 1 or 2 guardsmen.
Yeah,
they ain't survive into the next turn. It
No,
ain't
but you know
happening.
you've scored it, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all that
Whereas
matters.
now, if you go first,
Yeah.
you're just not getting those objectives, so you're getting massively outscored.
Yeah. And remember, this is also in the context of the new change to sudden death, where if you table your opponent, you don't will automatically win. So you've got a mentality like, if I look at the difference between my Elder and my Nurgle list, my Nurgle list is absolutely loving this because it's going to hold all the objectives, it's just going to score, and I'll choose to go second almost every time, and that's how that's going to play. My Elder list that used to table, well, now even if I table, I've got to score so much in the last couple of turns that it's when I table is so important. And if I'm going first and they're going to counter deploy me, and then they're going to use prepared stratagem and stuff, I don't think I can table them to like turn 5, which means that what am I going to score on turn 5? Not a lot, to be honest. And that list isn't built to score at all. So that list is almost like dead if it's Eternal War. And that was like the most brutal list I've ever played. It was just wipe people every turn.
It's crazy. So I guess boots on the ground doesn't work anymore.
Will it? Isn't boots to the ground
Sudden
and
death rule.
FAQ? Oh, is it? Oh, the 9 flyers are coming out now.
But you ain't scoring the points.
3 Crimson Hunters, Crimson Hunters, and Exarchs. Maybe that list does work. I didn't realise that.
You score 0 points, but you just table all your opponents.
Yeah, but then you have to table, and you absolutely have to. Like at the moment, you play a list that tables but scores in the later rounds, but now you have to table, like guaranteed. So, yeah, interesting. I didn't realise that.
So
there's a few weird things in these, and I want to get the whole book in front of me and go through it properly. But there's like a rule which I'm absolutely hating for my demons. My Plague Bearer list, for example, is going to hold all the objectives. But there's a rule in one of the missions that is called Null Field, and if you're within 12 inches of an objective, you can't take an invulnerable save. So I'm like, so how do Plague Bearers take objectives? Because they have a 6 up save, 7 up save. I think it's a 6 up save about they're invulnerable. Well, they're just useless at that point. That's just they've got to be like in tournaments. They will have to say it's this that mission, but without the Null Field, for example.
See, the thing is, I don't find a lot of these more quirky missions actually make it into competitive play. Like if you take Recon as the class example of a bloody awful mission where you start half your army off the board and it comes on like turn 2 or 3. And we played it in one tournament. It was utter chaos.
Well, and the problem,
chaos.
Yeah, the other problem that you have, a lot of tournaments we play, as you say, they play both missions. They'll play Eternal War and Maelstrom. And quite frankly, I can't see a lot of interaction between the Eternal War and Maelstrom missions, and they don't link with any others. So, like, if you're playing the Eternal War, to be honest, you pretty much have to play playing Eternal War. You can't have some way you're scoring. Like, we had a problem with the old Chapter Approved where, like, some missions would use 6 objectives and some would use 3 or get rid of them and stuff, and it didn't kind of work. So I think there is going to... Tio's got a bit of a task on hands to make this work, but the breadth of play here is what's really exciting. So.
But if they tighten up these Eternal War missions, like I think particularly the progressive ones, I don't think they need Maelstrom cards. Just from a personal point of view. Maybe not the tournament scene, but I think the missions are so good, you're scoring points every turn. You don't need it. You don't need that Maelstrom on top.
No, I'm in agreement with that. I think the Maelstrom is way too swingy, to be honest. You draw a card you can't do, and it's like, well, what's the point? You draw 5 cards and you can't do any. There was the mission where you start with 5 and it goes 4, 3, 2, 1. Like Deadlock it is, and you draw 5 cards in the first turn. You can't do like. I'm never going to score that point. I'm never going to be able to do that. I can only discard 1 a turn. Like this is, and I'm playing it's just going to be GG. So I think. So
guys, just quickly, so the winners from the missions, I think, are Hordes.
Which they were on the...
Because you don't have the drops anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have the drops anymore, so you're going to be going first more of the time if you want to. The missions massively favour Hordes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, 40k favours Hordes anyway, in case you haven't figured out by this point.
It is on that trajectory. And there's something I want to talk about when we come into the points about how the meta is going to adapt. And I think Hordes are definitely on the way up, but I think we're going to have some problems with them. And we'll come into that in a second. But yeah, the Horde meta is definitely on the horizon if it's not here already. With all the other armies there.
The only other thing I noticed from the missions was actually there's a little caveat in one of the missions which says you deploy your objectives before the scenery.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So I don't think we're going to be deploying scenery in tournaments, but what that probably infers is actually that you're not going to be able to put objectives in buildings.
Yeah. No, I totally.
Which will probably there'll be night players everywhere rejoicing about this.
Yeah, well, because you could just put objective like on the top floor, and
Yeah,
then the night player can
most tournaments didn't let you do that anyway, but there were still a few. And you came across that night player, and you're like, right, all my objectives are on the first floor, mate. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to be honest, I've seen a lot more. Really, even since London GT, almost all the tournaments I played at this year, I've used fixed objectives for the most part. So, like, yeah, I can see
I
that.
still like placing my objectives.
Oh, there's a huge level of gameplay around there. We'll do that in the pre-planning mission, in the deployment video. But yeah, how you deploy your objectives and how that forces the deployment around the army, around the opponent's army, is really like it's a really tactical level of the game. But I think the problem is it's a little bit too cerebral for most players who are just going to sit up and just want to start shooting. Like it's such a weird, like kind of second guessing game, and even if you really know all the sort of tactics and things you can do, half the time it's just guesswork anyway. Like it's too hard to predict. So I like it, but I think it's just a bit too complicated for a game that it's got so much other level of complexity to it. So I'm not totally adverse to just using fixed replacements, to be honest.
Yeah, it's cool. I really like the London GT, how it actually mixed up the fixed placements, and sometimes they're more central, sometimes they're more spread out.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And also, guys, speaking of London GT, these were the guys who did the no sudden death rules. And the way it works is that you just play on the mission, like you go on to turn 7 by yourself. The other guy goes and gets a beer, and you tell him what you scored at the end. So, like, literally, but jokes aside, guys, actually all you do is then you just jump on all the objectives and you quickly run through 3 turns worth of points.
Half the time you just theory hammer, you just pull the cards and say, well, I got that, and then you can do it in like 5 minutes.
But that's how it works. The game just doesn't just end. It's more that you get 3 turns worth of scoring.
And then that's where it's all about, just like holding out, like get that one guy that he has to put everything in, hide him around the corner of a building. He has to move everything around to weird positions, trying to shoot it. He's not getting the objectives. He's trying to table you, and you can hold it. You can swing a game, even with losing that last guy on the last turn. Like we played a game where I was playing my Nurgle list and you were playing your Fire Raptor list, and I had like 95 victory points and you had like 12 or something, and you tabled me on turn 5, and it's like, well, you won that game under the new rules. I'd won that game. So sure. It's that completely different change of play.
I personally really like the London GT way of doing things. I thought it was great fun.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited to see what the full rule pack will be in the next one, actually.
So let's put a line under these missions, because it is the most exciting thing about Chapter Approved. But let's quickly go over your biggest winners and losers for the point. And guys, we're not going to cover everything because I can't be bothered, to be honest.
For me, Death Guard. Absolutely huge wins. Everything went cheaper. Plague Marines got cheaper. All their characters came down like 10, 15, 20 points, and it's a very character heavy list. I love it. I think Death Guard, they were pretty strong before, to be honest. The amount of mortal wounds and stuff they can put out, and the fact is that now everything is just that little bit cheaper. Some of this stuff in the Chapter Approved were things that they don't need points changes. They need like data slate changes. They just weren't like Necron's entire army just doesn't have a thing that works. So the point changes isn't going to make a difference to it until you get to stupid point changes and it doesn't work in the game. But Death Guard were on that, like they really just needed a little drop and then they'd be super competitive, and they actually got quite a big drop. So I think we're going to see some solid Death Guard stuff coming out. Heavy Plague Marine orientated lists, all the weapons and stuff. They're really the characters and stuff. The fact that you can take a Biologist Putrefier and a 9-man squad of Marines, Plague Marines, and a Rhino, and that's dropped like, I don't know, probably 30 points, 40 points to do that little combo, and they're shooting 10 to 96 mortal wound causing grenades is like, it's ridiculous. So the fact you can now do 2
again.
Oh man, the fact you can take 2 or 3 or 4 of those now, like they've got some big wins. Demons as a whole, I'm so happy with the Bloodthirster changes. Literally the first thing I saw was that, because I kind of knew that they were coming, Bloodthirsters dropped down to 240 points or 260 for the Infinite Rage. So I went, okay, 2,000 divided by 260, how many Bloodthirsters can I get in? Oh my god, it's 8 Bloodthirsters. I can now have 8 Bloodthirsters. So I've got a list right now that I haven't played yet. So it's 3 Infinite Rage ones, it's the D-Axes, 3 Wrath of Khorne, a Demon Prince with Skull Reaver Axe, and Scarbrand. Oh my god, that is like my favourite fluffiest list ever. I can't wait to get on the table. It's probably going to suck, but I think 240 point is the right place for that. It's all the Slaanesh stuff got cheaper, and quite considerably so as well. Really good. I think you can get some Slaanesh stuff in there that's so cheap, and I can see that a lot of players playing that now. Horde, absolutely Horde Slaanesh is the way to play it. So really excited about that. And the CSM, the main stuff didn't change, but all the underutilized units and all the underutilized war gear got such a reduction. If you think before, you weren't really going to see Havocs because they're just like 5 lascannon Havocs ain't going to do much. 5 autocannons a bit overpriced. But whereas 5 autocannon Havocs was 140 points before, I think it's 145 points. It's now 100 or 105 points. So cheap. Like, that's for whatever. You take 3 squads of those, you're getting 24 autocannon shots for like 300 points. You put a Lord next to it. It's brilliant. Really very happy with it.
Let's stop you there because I think you're going to talk about Chaos all day.
Oh, I easily could. But AdMech had a similar reduction of points.
Just quickly before you move on, Chaos Cultist, you're a fan of the change?
Yes, I didn't really care because I stopped playing them a while ago because they are really good, but they're just such a stock thing that people play, and I think it's a very, very one-dimensional list when you start playing that kind of thing. And I think Chaos have got so much in their repertoire that I don't think you need to default to Cultists. The point increase is huge. It's 40 points for a 40-man squad. If you were taking 2 before, there's 80 points. So it's a massive change. But if it means that you're not going to take those and you're going to start looking at weird stuff that you never looked at before, and we're going to see Raptors, Havocs, Chosen, Fallen, Forge Fiends and stuff, then great. I'm all behind it. Bikes,
guys,
yeah, exactly.
Chaos are going to get good in the new year because there's new Slaanesh coming. They've got new rules coming out. There's going to be a lot of new stuff.
Well, we've seen with Vigilus Defiant that they brought out these specialist detachments, but there's not a single Chaos detachment in that, which means that Part 2 must be full of that stuff. So yeah, that and a few detachments like that could really boost the power massively. So yeah, totally agree. They've done very well, and there's more stuff coming for them for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. So Imperium-wise, guys, AdMech took a massive decrease. We're not going to cover everything, mainly because I can't remember all the different units, but essentially, like Destroyers, they like halved in points, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, they did the same thing across the board. What they did is they did 2 main things. They took all of the underutilized units and they made them really cheap so that you have a meaningful reason to take them. So you're not just taking the Cataphor and Destroyers. You can look at, the 4 or 5 of the other AdMech units that you wouldn't have used before, but now are just so cheap that you've got to look at them. And the second thing they did, and this is across the board, is they just made all the characters so much cheaper, which I love because characters are brilliant. Every single character, I think the AdMech characters and stuff have got dropped as well. All the Chaos characters got drops. Khan went from 160 to 120 points. Like, that's amazing. So,
and do you know they made Smash Captains better? They made them cheaper.
They did, yes.
The Stormtroopers went down.
Yeah,
and like he was underutilized, so it's good to finally see a nice fluffy Smash Captain on the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, of course, we've all been waiting for that. Memphis Storm went up though. He's kind of like a Smash Captain.
Yeah.
Well, talking about the Imperium, one thing that I'm excited to see, and I foresee this on the horizon, is that the sniper rifles went down 2 points.
Yes.
You think? Oh my god!
To see that because it was so like I don't think it's a bad. That's a unit which isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's just
too many points, and it wasn't worth it. And unless you can get the mortal wounds out, so unless you've got reroll wounds, because obviously you're wounding on 6, mortal wounds on 6s, but if you're rerolling that, you're doubling your chance of having it happen. And then you spam it. If you've got reroll hits, reroll wounds, something like Gilliman or that Tyrion or whatever the guy is, and you're spamming those. I think sniper spam is going to be big, and it's going to take all these cheap. Everyone's playing more characters now, so that's going to kill the characters that everyone's playing. So I think there's some big wins there. That's going to completely different style meta lists that people are going to look out for.
Good buddy. I just want to talk about my 2 armies because I think there's been some pretty cool changes there. Custodes, they didn't go up in points ever, but old Treyhand is now actually quite viable.
He's a beast. Absolutely.
He dropped like 60 points. He went from 250 down to 185.
Yeah. He was solid before. You actually had a reason to take him before, and now you don't have a reason not to, basically.
I know. So good. The other Custodes troops went down a little bit, but guys, they're still not viable.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they are.
No, they're just 6-inch move guys, aren't they?
I mean, some people have been finding success with like some of the Custodes foot troops, and sometimes people are saying like you can unleash the lions and split a big squad of Terminators up, but
I don't think the Terminators are particularly good.
I don't see it.
But the main troops are
too expensive for their points.
How much did the main troops drop by?
The main troops didn't drop.
Oh, what got cheap on them then? Was it just the Terminators?
The Terminators and the Wardens. I think they're called.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and Treyhand.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my other army, Dark Angels. Now, guys, these Dark Angels are taking a leap up. They were sort of a tier 3 codex. They're definitely up in tier 2 now. So bikes have got cheaper. Like bikes, they are not necessarily that bad a unit. They've still got the inherent issue that they can't hit and run.
Yeah. Although, have you seen the new Vigilus Defiant
I'll get onto that.
attachment?
But that's 2 command points. So basically, Ravenwing are a really short range army because your basic guy has a 4-shot bolter at 12 inches. Okay, because he needs to be in that 12-inch range for him to work.
Yeah, they're right.
And he has usually rocking a special weapon as well, a flamer, a melter, something else, to make him really good. And he's 21 points now, plus the war gear. That's huge. And flamers and melters all came down in points.
Can they advance and charge? They're really stratagem like that.
They do.
They do.
So I think actually the real winner here is Black Knights. They took I think it's like an 8 or a 9 point decrease. They're like 38 points a model now. So they have a twin plasma gun. Now, guys, if anyone who's not been on the receiving end of Dark Angel plasma, essentially it is damage 3 when it's overcharging with a strat. Now these guys, they can move and they speeded a Raven, so they can advance and charge and still shoot. They're not amazing in combat, but the new strat, the new formation now, it does 2 massive things for particularly Black Knights. Number 1, it adds +1 to your ballistic skill if you're shooting something which another unit's already wounded. And because you use that stratagem after they've wounded, it's actually quite reliable now. So you get Sammy and a speeder to light up a unit, and you go, right, now it's +1 to hit.
Yeah.
Why is +1 to hit so huge, Lewis?
Well, it's like a 16% increase in your probability of rolling it. So
yeah, it's also like a.
It also means you don't have to overcharge. So if you overcharge, you can't die.
Exactly. So it's like a 50% more survivability. Oh my god!
Well, this is a new thing. The prescience has been around.
No, but it's like this is what Black Knights needed. It was like
they did.
You just roll, you overcharge, you do your 3 damage strat, and you blow stuff up, and you don't. Die.
And you can't die. Unless you're shooting stuff that's -1 to hit. But
and it's more effective.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, guys, you're always re-rolling hits with Sammy. You're re-rolling wounds of 1 with a Talon Master. You're ignoring cover. It's actually pretty good.
And plasma guns took a drop as well themselves, didn't they?
The Talon, the Dark Age,
the Talon did.
Well, it's free.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But the general plasma
unique
guns
weapon,
took like a 3-point drop.
Yeah, there's still an argument which is better. Is it you take a squad of 3. Your regular guys, because they get 4 shots each with their bolter, plus they can take a plasma gun for 2 shots each. But actually, guys, the reason they're not quite as good is you can't take 10 of them.
Yeah.
Because you can only take 2.
So your strats only work on that.
So you want the big unit of Black Knights. You speeded a Raven forwards.
Yeah.
You then light up a target. Then you +1 to hit. You overcharge everything. You +1 damage to their overcharged weapons. It's insane. Now there's another one which. Slightly more situation, but equally as cool, is that after you've fought, before your opponent even gets a chance to attack back, you can run away.
That's good.
It's 2 CP though, so you can run away, and you can, if there's nothing around, you can even advance.
So what I'm feeling like with the list is it would be like 1 or 2 of those units in a mixed up list, where you're just going to be. These are going to be your hammer units. They're going to come in. You kind of like you would play Spears. Your Nari Spears is exactly the same thing. Run forward, shoot everything, and then jump away and hide behind cover.
You say that. There's another tactic. Yeah, it uses a lot of CP, but actually, I could then move or even advance that unit. Now, guys, these guys have charged. Right. The reason they've charged, so they can't. When they move like the movement phase. They can't move back into combat somewhere, but they can always activate again because they've charged.
Right.
3 CP, you fight again after moving 20 inches. Because I'm right in thinking the only restriction on advancing is you can't then charge.
Unless you can have a rule to let you do it,
Yeah, but you've already charged. So these guys already count as charging. So you can advance later and still reactivate, can't you?
Potentially, yeah. I would have to read the actual wording of the rule, but in principle, it sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop you doing that. I mean, guys, you could even speed the Raven afterwards as well. Yeah. So you could do 2 speeded Ravens in the turn, 1 with a different unit, and then 1 with this unit, because you move like the movement phase.
See, this is exactly what we're talking about there. So these are units that when the book first opened, I know you were a big Talon player before, so you go, oh, how's my Raven Wing bikes doing? I don't know, playing a game, they're expensive, not really thinking about them, and all the combos and all the strats and all the things that you had at that time, maybe like when the book first dropped, you've kind of forgotten about because you've been playing other stuff.
Yeah.
And then you look at this point drop and you go, okay, let's pick that unit up again, and then you remember, oh my god, they did this, they could do that, they could do that. So all of these things, like we're talking about Raven Wing bikes here, like what 40k meta discussion involves Raven Wing bikes?
For sure. So just going back to my point, guys. You speeded a Raven in, you've moved 20, you charge, and then you back out of combat afterwards. You move near something you either want to tie up or you want to kill. So, guys, remember, you can only kill things with that you declared a charge for. But you can still use your CP to fight again and tie up an entire guard gun line.
Yeah.
And you'll have moved like 40, 50 inches that turn.
Yeah, and you can wrap yourself so you can't be shot back, which is their probably biggest problem.
So for an extra, it means like 5 or 6 CP, maybe 7 CP for the entire combat.
That's a lot of CP.
But you probably won the game.
But yeah, you did it in one turn and you won, yeah. So, okay, well, look, without going too much into the details of the individual points, if we come back to like the general approach to the book, we've discussed there, obviously, look at the points drops, look at things that you've kind of forgotten about before, see where you could take things forwards. I guess the next thing that I'd want to come on to and have a little bit of discussion with you about is how this affects the meta. So we're always advocates of saying, okay, don't just play in a bubble. Don't just sit there, write your list and go, oh, that's so cool. If that combo and that combo works, that'd be amazing. Always think, well, when I put that on the table, what's my opponent going to do and how they're going to play against it? And what are they going to be bringing? Yeah. And one of the questions I've got to ask you, and I haven't asked you this yet, so I'll be interested to see what your response is do you think that Chapter Approved, for the most part, is a bit of a wash? Every army has got points reductions on all their underutilized units. So every army can fit in that extra unit, that extra 2 units. Is that going to make a difference in the meta? Or are we just going to see everyone playing with effectively 2,200 points instead of 2,000 point list?
That is the thing, isn't it? It's just basically everyone's a winner. And if you do this for like more than 1 year in a row, then really this is going to be the case. You're going to be playing with 3,000 points next turn.
Exactly. And all it means is that we're going to have longer games. Like, okay, if only Death Guard went up, then Death Guard are much better. But if every army went up, then Death Guard are no better. They're just the same as every army. Yeah, so I don't know.
It's a way of kind of like nerfing units like Custodes without actually nerfing them.
By improving everything else, it's from a game design perspective, I'm an advocate of it. I think it's like it was a good idea, but what I'm really concerned at is that we're struggling with time in tournaments now, and all of a sudden we're playing with more models. How is that going to be any quicker?
And the meta's favouring hordes. It's all
exactly favouring hordes and characters. So I'm going to all these individual characters that all have their own things that they have to do that I've got to remember on psychic powers and all this stuff. And I've got more models, and I'm playing a horde army. Yeah. Like all of that for me is like, how the hell are you going to carry on playing 2-hour games? Like it's just not going to work. So.
Right, buddy. So I think that's all I've got time for tonight, really. But no, I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really, really good. Any closing thoughts, buddy?
Just when you're writing your list, think about all the changes. Go don't just read, oh, I'm a chaos player, what are the chaos changes? Go understand all the other changes, because like I said, if characters become really big, then snipers are going to become really big. If snipers had a drop, you can expect to see that. So now you've got to be thinking, I'm going to take all these characters, but I've got to be expecting I'm going to be playing against a lot of snipers now. So the meta is going to adapt. So just try and get a flavour for it, see how tournaments are playing out, who's winning them, and really get an impression on that before you get too sold on your particular list. Yeah. But that's it in general. And
just quickly, one last thought. Do you think there's going to be any points changes for the things which aren't in Chapter Approved? So we have Dark Eldar.
Yeah, Drukhari. I was like, where the hell is Drukhari?
So basically, this was written halfway through last year, so none of these things are actually in there. So it's going to be interesting whether they're just going to do a big FAQ for those ones, or they're just going to leave them completely unnerved. Right, buddy.
I don't know. I don't know.
So let's just say it's all I've got time for. So join us next week, and we're going to be straight back to our regular tactics.
Exactly.
Or we're going to cover, or maybe we'll cover one more on Chapter Approved when it's all out.
When we got the book and we've played a few missions, I think we'll come back and talk about it. When the meta starts to evolve, we'll have a discussion then. So
that's cool. Right, guys, let us know what you think to the missions, because I think that is the biggest change here. Right, guys, Take care. Thanks, buddy.
See you. Bye.